we're in the midst of the Wuhan outbreak, and you see a lot of medical practitioners really pour their heart out. And I'm split, because on the one hand, I see how noble this profession is, and then on the other, I'll go, hey, I'll never allow my daughter to put her life at risk. Would you recommend people to be a doctor? It's a difficult life.
It's really difficult. Honestly, I would say.
What's your advice? When you go to school and a young girl come up to you and say, "I want to be a doctor just like you."
What I always ask them back to the question, I will always say, or ask, why do you want to be a doctor? I think if they're set in the reason why, then maybe that will help them move through this, because a lot of people fail. I think in my year, 40% of my year kind of failed or gave up medicine.
Because on the one hand, it's about your intellectual capability. You need to be the top student in order to get into a medical field.
Yeah.
But that is just a small subset to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and then there's a whole resilience part.
That's right.
I know that you have to go through the internship. It's crazy. And then, you work through the hours. It's crazy as well.
The training is hard. So whenever people say to me or ask me, I really want to be a doctor, what do I do and stuff, that's why I always have to ask them, why do you want to be a doctor? Tell me. What is it about this profession that you want, that you think will make you happy, etc. Because at the end of the day, it's a lifelong commitment.
Right. So what would the best answer be to pass the test?
If purely their intention was really
to get respect.
To get respect, then no. Or to
my father-in-law or mother-in-law would like me.
Yeah, then obviously no. They're definitely going to quit, I guarantee that.
But then that's, because I'm the top student, right? Then, that is my pathway. I mean, those are unspoken, but those are mainly if you dig deep enough, I would. And a lot of people who want to be doctor, but they can't because they don't have that ability.
Yeah, they don't have academic
ability.
But doing medicine is not just academic. You have to have that side,
the emotional strength,
side, the emotional resilience.
Right,
is important. But how do you get emotional resilience?
Yeah,
and
you don't learn that from books.
Exactly.
So what would it be a good answer, to pass the test of whether or not the doctor career is for you?
That's a really hard question. Like, if this person, maybe to me, it would be saying something like, you really wanted to help people. So for me, for example, the reason why I became a doctor was because I really wanted to help people. And I don't come from a rich family, you see. So I thought the only way that I could help was through how smart I was in school. Because I did very well in school. I was an A student, and I thought, how best do I give back to the community and how best do I help others? Maybe I should be a doctor. So that's why I chose medicine. So if someone has a clear purpose as to why they want to be a doctor, maybe this is their avenue in wanting to help others, then yes, I am sure with that strong purpose, they will be able to go through very dark times during their training.
You also mentioned something about resiliency. What about it?
That you have to be able to stand back up again when things are really hard. For example, it could be something like how hard the exams are and how you will not be the smartest person in your year because everyone there is smart, right? So that might bring you down and suddenly you wake up. Like how I was in medical school, the same thing. Imagine always being an A student, like in school, high school, and then suddenly university, bam. I didn't realize, I actually need to revise and pay attention, I actually need to
there are people who are smarter and harder working.
Yeah, and there were people who are actually smart and who works hard.
Right.
I didn't work hard. I was lazy the first year, and I learned my lesson. I almost failed. And then that awakening, being able to wake up from that. Like when you fail, you either become the person who fights back or you become the person who gives up.
Right.
This is where emotional resilience comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Which person will you become now? And not just in exams, but when you face patients. When you face difficult patients imagine having a really long day, working non-stop, no one appreciates you, patients screaming at you,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to give up. Now, tell me, which person are you going to be? Are you going to go back to work tomorrow? Or are you going to give up? That requires resilience. And, when you've got a complication, or a patient, gets hurt from it, or they pass away, or, patients who die on you, are you going to get back up, or are you going to give up,
Patients, we as any customer,
Mm-hmm.
we would judge you the minute we see you.
Yeah.
How do you win over their confidence? Doctor would have to do that. The first 2 minutes, they would have to exert their authority and say, hey, I know more than you. I am a professional.
Yeah.
So how do you carry that across? How do you very quickly win that? By talking really fast.
No.
By pretending that you know everything. Yeah. How does one do it?
When I began,
What is the doctor's trick?
You know what? When I began, I had to pretend I knew everything. Because imagine when you're just beginning, who's going to believe you? You're young, you're Asian in a kind of white man's world.
Right.
And suddenly, a lot younger than these patients, and suddenly you go there and you're the doctor, and they're like, are you my doctor?
Yeah.
So you have to kind of pretend you're confident. So I remember.
So fake it till you make it.
Well, actually, to some extent, at that level you have to. Otherwise, how are you going to get patients?
So how does one carry themselves? The behavioral signs of it.
Confidence. You need to be confident with your patients so that they know. If you're confident in yourself, I think anyone can see that. You can see someone who walks into a room who's confident, right? You can tell that person's confident. Immediately you feel authority when that person's confident. So
how does one build confidence?
Very good question. There's this guy called Ed Milet, who is a great online mentor, and he does all these personal development kind of talks and tips and interviews. And he says, you build confidence simply by keeping the promises you make to yourself. That's it.
Wow.
As simple as that. If you promise, as a student, let's say, if you promise to yourself, okay, I'll read a chapter, a day of, whatever condition it is that I'm, or specialty that I'm in. And honestly, tell me, wouldn't you be confident if you not only kept that promise, but slowly you're gaining that knowledge, right? So you also have that core knowledge of that domain you're in. Of course you're going to be confident, So by keeping the promises that you make to yourself, you innately become more confident as a person. And by having more knowledge in the domain that you're in, whatever specialty that you're doing, and again, innately, you become more confident because you know more about the matter, you know more, on it than the person who's Googled it before you, that kind of thing. So
do your homework, be prepared.
Do your homework, and keep the promises you make to yourself. Don't break those promises, because every time you break that promise, you start to not believe yourself, because you're like, oh yeah, I said I was going to work out yesterday, but I didn't do it. So tomorrow, why should I believe what I say?
Right. So it starts from within.
It starts from within. It cracks the foundation of confidence that you have inside, because how can you be someone who's reliable when you can't even rely on yourself? And confidence is that the ability to rely on oneself is confidence.
Wow.